Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me, as always, is your Denver Broncos insider and Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on, man? How's everything going up there in Alaska today?
It's going great. We've been getting quite a bit of rain, which is wonderful for the fire that we've had going on. Not too far from where I live. I mean, basically at one point this summer we had a fire north of us, south of us, and to the east of us a little bit. So getting this rain's helping it and just get the fires under control and helping get the ground wet. We've only had like 5 days of rain all summer, which is really not typical for Alaska, but when it does happen, the rare times that it does, it means that we're going to be having a really bad winter. So I'm not looking forward to that, but I'm just glad that we've gotten the rain to help with the fires.
Yeah, man, I remember you telling us about those fires that were right around your guys' house. The air quality wasn't very good. We got quite a bit of rain the other day as well, here like an inch and a half on Wednesday afternoon. I've also been kind of dealing with some kind of a chest cold, so I didn't really get a chance to take a look at the Broncos and Raiders game as much as I'd like to, but we did get to go back and take a look at some of that, so we could actually do a podcast for you guys today. But on today's episode of Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast, we're going to talk briefly about that Broncos loss to the Oakland Raiders 24-16 on Monday Night Football, how embarrassing it kind of was to see just the same stuff that we've always seen from the Broncos over the past couple of years. We do have some news about a potential trade target for you guys as well. And then we're going to talk about what the Broncos need to fix after watching the Raiders game and how they can approach the game against the Chicago Bears if they want to sneak away with a victory in Week 2.
Fantasy football season is here, and this season there are more ways to win than ever because FanDuel has more ways to win cash prizes and once-in-a-lifetime experiences during every single game, every single week. If you never played FanDuel Fantasy Football before, that's great because new users get $20 insight credit if they deposit $20. Each and every year, fantasy football helps hardcore fans like us and even the casual fans to get that much more passionate and involved in the NFL regular season. But don't get stuck in a lineup that you're going to regret. With FanDuel, you can pick a new team each and every week. FanDuel is way more flexible with your options, and the injuries and busts, guess what? They don't end your season. Plus, you get the chance to win millions of dollars. Sign up for FanDuel now and get $20 in total bonus. Just make your first deposit of $20 to get started, and you'll get an extra $5 in site credit every week for 4 weeks. Go to FanDuel.com/DFSFantasy. That's FanDuel.com/DFSFantasy or download the FanDuel app.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. We started off by saying that there is a pretty big piece of information as far as a trade target for the Denver Broncos. Everyone's pretty well aware of what's going on down in Miami. They are in full-blown tank for Tua or tank for Herbert mode right now, and everybody, as far as their good quality players, are asking to be either released or traded right now. And one of those guys is former first-round pick Minka Fitzpatrick, cornerback/safety, very versatile player. Erick, I know you have some insider information out of Dove Valley for us. What do you got, my bud?
Well, last I heard was that the Denver Broncos are the favorites to land Minka Fitzpatrick. Of course, the last I heard of that was Friday afternoon, so who knows how things may have changed. I mean, this is the NFL. People often make the joke that it stands for not for long because of the players constantly coming in and out of the NFL and retiring so young. And like the average career is like 3.5 years for NFL players. So there's that joke that not for long for that, but it's also not for long for information. And and information is always changing quite a bit. I mean, there was a point where Jadeveon Clowney was headed to Philadelphia, not Seattle. But something fell through there. There was a point where he was headed to Miami, but stuff fell through there, and he ended up with Seattle. So information, since it doesn't last for very long, and news that is 5 minutes old can be often considered old and irrelevant now. So he was the favorite of the Broncos were the favorite to land him. I don't know if that's still accurate now, especially at the time you guys are listening to this. Denver is very interested in him. The word is that if Roquan Smith wasn't there for the Bears, basically Vic Fangio had his choice of defenders, and his top two choices were Roquan Smith, followed by Minka Fitzpatrick. And then there was also the word out of Denver that I got that one of the targets that Denver was looking at if they traded down, if Bradley Chubb, Sam Darnold, or Baker Mayfield weren't there. Obviously, Bradley Chubb ended up being there. But if he wasn't, they had that trade with the Buffalo Bills where they were moving down, picking up a couple extra picks. And the word with that is that basically Minka Fitzpatrick would be one of their main targets for that. They really liked what he brought to the defense. They liked his versatility. They liked that they can move him up. Now, what is worth noting is that a lot of people talk about his versatility, but one reason why he wants out of Miami is because they're making him learn like 7 different roles between safety, corner, and linebacker that they want him to be able to play so they can use him in all these versatile ways. But he only wants to learn like 1 or 2. He doesn't want to be as versatile. He wants to be focused on learning just one thing and becoming great at doing that. And according to ProFootballFocus.com, in college, since they started their grading system, if I'm remembering this right, basically, Minka Fitzpatrick graded out as their best nickel corner or best slot corner, whichever way you want to put it. And then in his rookie year in the NFL, he saw most of his snaps, like I think it was like 281 snaps or 371 or something. I can't remember the exact number of snaps. I have it tweeted out about how often he played in the slot, and he played the most in the slot, and then his second most was out at boundary corner. So he's got most of his time there, but when he was in the slot, he graded out as one of the best slot corners in the NFL his rookie year last year. So if Denver's getting him, I think that they would be looking to putting him at nickel, which they still kind of have a little bit of an issue. This would allow Kareem Jackson to basically kind of float around more, kind of that role that they actually want him to be doing, with that he wasn't able to do with Bryce Callahan out. Getting Fitzpatrick would help with do that. And it also just doesn't mean that there's great news with Bryce Callahan's foot. The Broncos have been shopping for corners for a while now, and they still haven't been able to get it. I mean, they brought in Duke Dawson, they brought in Devonta Harris, but they're still looking. I've had multiple conversations that the Broncos have had multiple conversations with corners from multiple teams, with the Minnesota Vikings about Trey Waynes, with the Miami Dolphins about the corner that they just re-signed to a big extension, Xavier Howard, and multiple others. So they're definitely looking. It makes sense for them to go get Minka Fitzpatrick. There's definitely plenty of interest in Minka Fitzpatrick from the Denver Broncos, both in the front office and in the coaching staff. So we'll see what happens there. I don't expect the trade to come down here before probably Tuesday or Wednesday of this next week, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully Denver's able to walk away with him because it just opens up so much for this year and beyond.
Yeah, exactly. And Minka Fitzpatrick, obviously this is his second year, so he's still in his rookie contract. He's very cost-controlled for the next 4 years, at least the next 3 years before he gets that fifth-year option, which is most likely going to be handed down if the Broncos do take advantage of this trade situation. This year, the Minka Fitzpatrick has a $1.3 million cap hit. And the Broncos just opened up about $13 million in cap space by restructuring Joe Flacco's deal. So that $1.3 million worth of cap space is nothing compared to what the Broncos have in available space. Now, guys, the Broncos did not play very good football against the Oakland Raiders in any facet. I mean, there was simply zero pass rush. The Raiders were not crazy gashing the Broncos in the running game, but it was effective, and it helped set up the play-action passing game for the Raiders. Derek Carr was getting the ball out of his hands extremely quickly, picking on Isaac Yiadom a lot, especially in the first half. So we really kind of need to take a look at what Denver can fix if they want to win against the Chicago Bears this week. Now, Eric, I'm going to let you kind of start it off here. You have a piece out right now on one Isaac Yiadom. And you're saying that it's not quite time to be giving up on this guy, obviously for reasons like, he was a third-round draft pick and it's only year number 2 for him. But I want you to break down Yiadom's game tape really quick and just kind of tell me what you saw.
Well, going over each and every pass, it's not quite a filled piece, but I do talk about every pass that he allowed. And he allowed 8 catches on 10 targets, which isn't ideal. I mean, that's kind of hard pill to swallow. I mean, especially when 3 of them were big plays in key downs, and it just wasn't great. But the thing is that 5 of his passes were all passes within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And the Denver Broncos defense, they were playing off a lot, and the Raiders took advantage of that. There was quick strikes to the receivers for 5 of those catches, and I think between those 5 catches, he allowed less than 50 yards, which that's actually pretty good. In one of the cases, it ended up being leading to a 3rd down and short, which the Raiders weren't able to convert, and that ended up coming in the second half. Of those 8 catches, 7 of them happened in the first half. So that, again, that's great because Denver made adjustments in the second half. And this is kind of where I'm saying that don't give up on him, because in the second half, the adjustments they made really showed how he can be effective. I'm not saying he's going to be a great corner. I think that at best he might be a solid number 2 corner, but he still has a lot of development to go. Now, on the 3 big passes that really stood out with him that were big plays for the Raiders offense and really gave them some momentum. There was one of them where it was deep down the sideline and Will Parks was supposed to come over the top and give Isaac Adams some help, and he didn't. And Isaac Adams actually had really good coverage on that pass. It just happened to be a better throw right into the bucket. I mean, the throw was perfect. Derek Carr dropped it right into the bucket on the sideline. Isaac Adams had great coverage on it. He tried to break it up, but one issue with that is that Isaac Adams doesn't play the best with his back to the ball. He plays plays much better with the ball going in front of him and him coming down and making the stop, which is where those 5 passes I mentioned earlier really helped show what he can do. He is very quick to react and close. He's not the quickest guy, but he makes good reads and is able to diagnose quickly. Another pass was a deep shot downfield where the Broncos loaded up the box. I mean, the Oakland Raiders, they brought in a offensive lineman as a tight end and reported him as eligible. So that made the Broncos think that, oh, hey, it's going to be a run play. So they loaded up the box for a run play, and they just ended up taking a shot downfield. This is where Isaac Adams' lack of quickness, lack of athleticism really showed up. He just kind of gave up a step or two to the receiver and just wasn't able to basically catch back up again. And then the other one was just a quick slant inside that Isaac Adams, he was playing too far off and he just wasn't quick enough to close the distance on the receiver and ended up giving up a big play there. So there's definitely still potential for him. The adjustments they made in the second half, they kept him facing the ball more, not having him turn his back to the ball, letting him read the quarterback a little bit more, which kept him being in better position more often. And it caused the Raiders to go away from him more often. In the second half, he was targeted twice, or targeted 3 times, and allowed 1 catch. So that's a pretty good turnaround. That is a great turnaround. And that 1 catch he allowed ended up being for a 2-yard gain.
Yeah, that's an amazing turnaround, especially given his performance in the first half. To start off the game, Derek Carr had 6 straight completions against Isaac Adams in his coverage. He earned a 41.5 coverage grade from Pro Football Focus, which is, simply put, not good. And those 6 catches, 103 yards, to Darren Waller, a tight end, very physical, very big, kind of wide receiver converted to tight end, so he's a little bit more explosive than people give him credit for as far as moving down the field. Ryan Grant, the other guy, kind of a quicker, shifty slot receiving type, and then Tyrell Williams was the big guy. He's the big down the field, very fast receiver, and Yadam really struggles with that elite explosive athleticism. So now a big key matchup for me to watch in this game, and it's probably not going to play out very often, is if the Bears do decide to figure out a way to get Taylor Gabriel, the explosive slot wide receiver, lined up against Yadam in coverage. Now, Gabriel is very fast. He's a very good deep threat. He's also shifty and quick in space. So Yadam's going to have to play a little bit tighter to the line of scrimmage, be more physical with Gabriel, slow down that timing on the quicker slant passes and stuff like that. And hopefully that's going to be where he's going to be able to make some hay and actually have a whole lot of success against the Bears, especially with Mitchell Trubisky not being a very good quarterback in any way, shape, or form. That is how the Green Bay Packers beat the Chicago Bears in week 1. And it was something, I think it was Nick Kendall had put this out on his Twitter account, and they spoke extensively to this, was that they made Mitchell Trubisky beat them by playing the quarterback position in the pocket. They kept him in the pocket, and they made him beat them as a quarterback and didn't let him run around. So if the Broncos can dial up some pass rush, the Packers had 5 sacks against the Bears on Thursday Night Football to open the season, and Preston Smith had 1.5. Kenny Clark had a half a sack, a couple mixed up in there as well from the secondary on a couple blitz plays. But the Broncos have a very good defensive line, and they can, with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb obviously coming off the edge, if they can get in Mitchell Trubisky's face and make him try to beat them in the pocket with his arm, Yadam can actually have a lot of success here by knocking Taylor Gabriel off of his route and not letting him get any kind of separation vertically, because if the vertical passing game goes against Yadam and Gabriel, it's going to be a long track meet for the Denver Broncos, especially in the deep passing game. But guys, we got a lot of stuff to talk about still, but before we do that, we have to take a quick break. Before we go, though, I just want to remind you guys all to head on over to milehighhuddle.com to check out all of our written content on your Denver Broncos. At the Huddle website, you'll get breaking news, analysis, and opinion articles, as well as in-depth film breakdowns like the stuff that Erick has on Garrett Bowles and Josie Jewell right now. You're also going to get some of our upcoming NFL draft content. Erick is also doing the Finding Broncos series. Again, very good stuff right there, guys. But also make sure you guys take a couple minutes to create your own personalized profile and hit up the comment sections to voice your opinions on what you disagree or agree with. We all love to talk Broncos football with all of our readers, and you can sit in with us on our live game chats to see what your thoughts are on how the Broncos are performing. So before we step away, once again, go to Mile High Huddle and check that out. We'll be back here in just a few minutes, guys.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Welcome back, Broncos country, to the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am Lance Sanderson, and as always, joined by Erick Trickel. Guys, we just got done talking about some stuff regarding Isaac Yiadom in his pass coverage, and some stuff that the Broncos did very poorly against the Raiders on Monday Night Football. So now we're going to go and talk about what we want to see the Broncos improve so they can come away with a victory in their Week 2 contest against the Chicago Bears. And something that I really want to talk about first is the Broncos opening up the deep passing game with Joe Flacco. Everyone is very convinced that Joe Flacco is a very good quarterback pushing the ball down the field, based largely upon his arm strength. But I did some research and found a very interesting statistic from Pro Football Focus prior to the season. On passes 20 yards down the field or further, Joe Flacco ranked last in 2018 with a 52.6 passer rating. Now, that's something that the Broncos fans are really going to not like to hear, and it's something that we have to see the Broncos do if they want to hope to beat the Chicago Bears in Week 2. Now, the offensive line did not do Joe Flacco any favors last week, and he did hit on a very deep ball to Emmanuel Sanders deep down the field. So, Erick, kind of break this down for us, and what do you want to see the Broncos do as far as offensively that they can improve and hopefully get the deep passing game going?
See, I don't think that with the Bears pass rushers, that defensive line, Akeem Hicks, Leonard Floyd, and of course Khalil Mack, I don't want to see them try and take multiple shots deep downfield. What I think that they need to do is they need to follow what the Oakland Raiders did to completely shut down and negate the Broncos pass rush. I want to see quick strikes. I want to see them hit him just Cortland Sutton, he showed being effective at a quick inside slant and being able to take up some yards after the catch. Emmanuel Sanders, he's very quick and hard to cover. Deshaun Hamilton, he's a very good route runner and is able to get instant separation. And I think in the Raiders game, he was averaging like 3 yards of separation almost every snap he was out there. So that is tremendous. I mean, and getting those 3 yards, I can't remember the exact number, but he was getting that separation like almost instantly. So to negate that Bears pass rush and that defensive line that they have, I want to see them use these quick strikes. I want to see them being able to get the ball out quickly and letting the playmakers make plays. Phillip Lindsay, Noah Fant, those guys can be using it as well, because it helps out the offense in so many ways. I mean, again, it negates that pass rush, which pulls a little bit less pressure off of the offensive line. They don't have to hold up quite as long as they're not just basically sending a full-on blitz of 7 rushers against 6 blockers where somebody's coming free. Then you're fine. You're able to stay in there and take that 3-step drop and make that quick strike and pick up 5-7 yards every single play and put you in a second and short situation. I also want to see the Broncos incorporate more play action. There's this old line of thought that you have to be able to have an effective running game to be able to run the play action very well. And that is not the case. In fact, actually looking at all the stats and everything and breaking them down, all the advanced analytics that are here with it, it actually shows that an effective play action game actually helps out your running game more. Teams that have a good running game use play action great and very effectively, because it gets into the mind of the defenders on every single play action is, are they actually running it or are they passing it? And you just kind of, and from there you can get so many more things. You can get more option type plays involved in that. But no, not every play action is an option, but it's another wrinkle you could add into it. Reading one defender and having the quarterback decide what you want to do. I want to see the Broncos use that play action. Rick Scangarello comes from an offensive system where running the ball is what sets up everything. But that was the old style of it. That was back 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, these guys have adapted the system for the modern era of football where the play-action pass sets up the run, not the other way around. That's what the Broncos need to do. Rick Scangarello needs to see that. He needs to use that because in an article I'm actually working on right now about weaknesses to exploit for the Chicago Bears, which the article will probably be published by the time you guys are listening to this, but it talks about this and how the Packers were able to use the play action to move the ball effectively because Matt LaFleur is another one of those guys who comes from the same system that Rick Scangarello does. He coached under Sean McVay. He worked with Kyle Shanahan. He has this experience with these guys that shows that the play action, it should be the core part of this. Even teams that don't run this offense are using the play action to help set out the run game. You don't need an effective run game. You don't need a good run game. You can be running the ball for an average of 1 yard per carry, and play action is still effective. I want to see the Broncos incorporate that a little bit more. That helps move the pocket. Again, just like quicker passes, it helps takes a little bit of pressure off of the offensive line. And I'm not sure this offensive line will be able to hold up against Akeem Hicks, Leonard Floyd, and Khalil Mack. So doing whatever they can to counteract that, to negate that pass rush, the Broncos need to be doing. And hopefully they watch that Packers game and they are able to see exactly what the Packers were able to do. I mean, looking just on the quick passes, Derek Carr was averaging 2.33 seconds to throw against the Denver Broncos. Aaron Rodgers was averaging 3.04 seconds against the Chicago Bears, and he was getting pressured up the wazoo. Aaron Rodgers is a little bit more mobile than Joe Flacco, so he's able to get away with it. He's able to negate some of the pressure with his legs a little bit more. What I want to see Joe Flacco do is, and not this 2.66 seconds that he had against the Raiders, I want to see him getting out the ball on average less than 2.5 seconds. I'm looking at like 2.4 as the max for him, because 2.5 seconds, that is right there with about Khalil Mack's average time to a sack. I think his average time is actually like 2.47 or 2.46. So we can't have that. He's going to be facing a lot against Garrett Bowles and Elijah Wilkinson. Get that ball out quicker, use the play action, and do these things to negate that pass rush.
Yeah, exactly. And the Raiders actually used a lot of the play action game, and you didn't really notice it, but their running game wasn't very effective. It was effective. They did. Josh Jacobs did rush for 3.7 yards per carry, which is not horrible. But the Raiders' running game wasn't really the reason why they ended up winning that game against the Broncos. It was the quick passing game that they used as an extension to the running game, and then built their play action passing moving off of that, which also then completely, as you said, eliminated the pass rush for the Denver Broncos. Getting Joe Flacco and getting the ball out of his hands quickly is going to be paramount if they want to hold up against that Chicago Bears defense, because I think that Bears defense is, it's obviously very much better than the Raiders from front to back. They do have Kyle Fuller. They do have Eddie Jackson, who's a very good free safety. I think he had 6 interceptions last year, so they do know how to take away the ball in the passing game. So using the quick passing game where the Bears secondary is not quite as efficient, especially taking the football away, is a big key to this game as well. Now, we're going to take another quick break here, guys, and then on the other side of this, we're going to talk about one key matchup that we want to see the Broncos take advantage of so that they can win against the Chicago Bears. We'll be right back, guys.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast, guys. We're talking about the Broncos versus the Bears coming up on Sunday afternoon in Mile High Stadium. Eric, what is your biggest key matchup to watch so the Broncos can come away with the victory, man?
Now, many people might view this as a cop-out, but my biggest matchup to watch is Vic Fangio against Matt Naggy. The two head coaches of the two teams, obviously they're going to be going head-to-head, but there's so much more here. Vic Fangio worked with the Chicago Bears. He was their defensive coordinator for multiple years. He worked under Matt Naggy. He knows that offense. He knows their strengths. He knows their weaknesses, and he knows Mitchell Trubisky very well. And the Green Bay Packers, you hit on it a little bit earlier, that they had an idea that they can win this game if they made Mitch Trubisky play quarterback. Vic Fangio has to know that. He practiced against him for so many years. He was sitting there trying to come up with ways to basically make the offense give the offense issues so they couldn't run smoothly. And there's definitely so many ways that you can do that because Mitchell Trubisky just isn't a very good quarterback. Now, if everything goes right or he's able to get out of the pocket, then he does a lot better. But you want to keep him in the pocket. You want to give him difficult reads and force mistakes, get pressure up the middle. These are all things that you want to do to disrupt him. Vic Fangio knows that, and I'm going to be curious to see how he's able to dial it up without bringing blitzes, because Vic Fangio is not known to bring blitzes. Of course, we can always see that change and just throw that complete curveball at the Chicago Bears, because they should know that he doesn't blitz often. So against the former team, why not blitz a little bit more? But anyways, I digress from other points I'm trying to make. It's going to be interesting to see this battle of these two sides that know each other very well. And I would actually think that Vic Fangio has a little bit more of an advantage here. Yes, the Chicago Bears know his defense, but they haven't really seen his defense with these players. He has a very different cast that he is working with on this Broncos team than he was with the Chicago Bears. Meanwhile, Matt Naggy, his offense is largely the same. There's not that many new pieces on it. So Vic Fangio, he knows that offense more than they know this Broncos defense. I'm very excited to watch this matchup, and I think the fact that Vic Fangio has the advantage here with the defense against the offense, I think that the Broncos are going to be able to take even more advantage of that. They're going to basically get a really bad game, force a bad game out of Mitchell Trubisky. They're really good when it comes to playing at home. Nick Kendall, he actually had the stat out there about just how good the Broncos are when it comes to them playing at home in the first couple weeks. Since the Broncos opened their new stadium in 2001, they are 21-1 in games in Denver in weeks 1 and 2. One loss since opening their new stadium at home. That is ridiculous. And then you just look back to the merger in 1969, 51 wins, 8 losses, 2 ties. Again, an incredible number. There's definitely that mile-high advantage being in that air. The Chicago Bears defense, I mean, again, going back to those quick passes. You want to tire them out? Quick passes. That's going to tire them out. Keeping tempo on the offense. And then it just comes down, and that's going to play a factor. I think that they're going to try and force Mitch Trubisky to throw to his left, which is like a significantly worse statistic. Like, he is strictly a right side of the field passer. It is so weird to watch him try and throw to the left. It's like his technique crumbles, and you can force mistakes from there. Is he going to challenge Chris Harris? Because Chris Harris we can probably see lined up on that right side a lot more often. So there's just so many ways that they can take advantage of basically Mitchell Trubisky. I'm not sure Matt Nagy is going to be able to have enough to overcome that, and I think that the Broncos are going to end up walking away with this one with a score of 17-12. I think that at most the Bears offense is only able to end up getting the red zone to kick field goals. I don't think they'll be able to get in the red zone, and I think that the Denver Broncos defense helps them out a lot by getting multiple takeaways and keeping and winning the field position battle.
Yeah, man, I'm going to actually disagree with you on the final score of this game, and I'm going to say that the Chicago Bears walk away with this with a 16-13 victory. I believe. Stop it. I actually got some sound analysis as to why here, and it's going to go back into my key matchup here, and another one of also Isaac Yiadom against Taylor Gabriel. But the Broncos' offensive line versus the Bears' pass rush. Plain and simple, whether it's Khalil Mack going against Garrett Bowles or against Elijah Wilkinson, or Leonard Floyd going against Garrett Bowles or Elijah Wilkinson. Both are extremely inconsistent, and now Elijah Wilkinson stepping in for Juwan James has to step up as that starting right tackle. He gave up 2 sacks to Benson Mayowa against the Raiders. Mayowa is a 6-year undrafted free agent out of Idaho that I had never heard of prior to the game. Not once. He's played in 72 career games, has 15 starts, and 13 career sacks prior to that night. Now, Wilkinson and Garrett Bowles both did have some flashes where they were able to, drop anchor in the passing game, but I don't believe that they're going to be able to do that against Leonard Floyd and Khalil Mack. And if the Broncos can't get a quick passing game going, then Joe Flacco is going to get picked apart by that Bears defensive line. So to me, I don't think that the Broncos are going to be able to move the football very well, especially with the pass rush as it is. But the running game for the Broncos offensive line was also not very good. It wasn't very effective until later in the second half. And I mean, there was a really nice play by Philip Lindsay where he made a man miss in the backfield. Garrett Bowles kind of got out front, and then Lindsay made a bad cut it inside. If he cuts that to the outside, that's a touchdown. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Cortland Sutton had his guy 6 yards deep in the end zone, and Garrett Bowles was the only player between safety and Philip Lindsay, and Lindsay made a bad read and just cut it back to the inside. But the biggest thing to me is if the Broncos can't win in the trenches up front against that Bears defensive front, they're not going to be able to get anything going. So I think the Broncos don't really stand a chance to be able to do that, and it's going to be kind of another ugly game. And despite the stats of them winning at home, I don't think it's going to happen this week. So, but anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us today on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Thank you again for joining us today. You guys can follow us both on Twitter if you choose by finding me at Sanderson MHH, and for Erick at Erick Trickel, spelled ERICKTRICKEL. Also, be sure to follow Mile High Huddle at Mile High Huddle for instant updates on the Denver Broncos. We do a really good job trying to get all of our written content, all of our film content, the podcast network. You can follow that at Huddle Up Pod as well. So if you guys really want any instant kind of news on the Denver Broncos and really hopefully to be able to report that the Broncos have traded for Minka Fitzpatrick here in the next couple of days, go ahead and do that. Also follow the Mile High Huddle Facebook page as well. We love and appreciate all your guys' support, and if it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do best, which is break down your Denver Broncos. So until next time, Broncos country, you guys stay safe, take care, and have a great day. Thanks for listening.